we weren't used to having our triangles drawn in a way that was not just a straight triangle, right? Is that where this confusion came from? Looking at that shark and you're like, oh my gosh, they're circles, they're not really straight triangles. I heard it. Well, if you just went along with it and saw that there were indeed triangles, it would have just made your life a little bit easier. This first problem, we were trying to find x and y. To get started, show of hands. Who ripped off their formula sheet and looked at it the first minute they got the test? You guys! Your very first step, I told you guys, should be to rip off. Oh, don't tell me.
No, cause like I ripped it off, but like I had like. Well, I mean, I don't even know when you need it.
Okay, so that's why I told you guys to rip off the formula sheet in the first minute you just read what was on there. That's why I wanted you guys to do that. Aaron, question?
I accidentally ripped it in half.
Oh,
I had to do it because like when I was trying to take it out, I was sleeping.
What was on the formula chart that was super important for this problem was the 30, 60, 90 triangle. The 30, 60, 90 triangle. What's special about the 30, 60, 90 triangle?
It gives you all angles.
It gives you the angles. What's special about the sides of 30, 60, 90?
They're straight.
Well, on the formula sheet, it told you that the side opposite the 30 was equal to x. The side opposite the 60 was equal to x root 3. And then the side opposite the 90-degree angle was equal to 2x. You had to have this information in order to solve for x. Because x, right here, is the value opposite which side? Looking at this, which side is the x opposite of Lewis? Which angle is it opposite of? What angle measure? X is opposite the 30-degree angle, exactly. And I need to see, what side is opposite the 60-degree angle? Opposite the 60-degree angle. Who can help me get that? What value? 2! It is 2. And then therefore the hypotenuse is opposite the 90-degree angle, right? To go about solving this problem, you had to set up your equation. What is the side opposite the 60-degree angle equal to again?
2x.
No, that was opposite the hypotenuse. Yannette, what's the side opposite the 60-degree angle equal to? In the formula, on just the formula chart, it's x squared root 3. So this 2, which is opposite the 60-degree angle, is equal to x root 3. Take a second. How would I get x by itself? Don't say out loud, just think it through. How do you get x by itself? Vanessa, how do you get it by itself? Divide what? The square root of 3 to both both sides. Do you agree with that, Mariah? Yes. I agree with that too. So now, what's next, Ivan? What do I do to get x?
We already have it.
Yep, well, so what does x equal?
X equals 2 square root of 3.
So x equals 2 over the square root of 3. Just for my general knowledge, have you guys worked with reducing or simplifying numbers that have radicals in the denominator? You might have learned it like a long time ago and need a refresher on it. Yes. Okay, which is fine. I just want to know where we're at. On the common assessment, because we haven't put simplifying radicals into our curriculum yet, as in we haven't gone back over it, the answer could have been left as 2 root 3. But on a normal day, you would have to simplify this further. To get rid of a radical in the denominator, you would then multiply your numerator and denominator by that radical. So, what's 2 times root 3? 2 root 3. What's root 3 times root 3? Root 9, but what's root 9 reduced to? 3. Your answer was 2 root 3 over 3. The answer to x was 2 root 3 over 3. Anyone get that right? No. Oh no, yeah? That's awesome. A lot of people miss this problem. So if you missed it this time around, just don't miss it next time around. Right? Yes, of course you can write it in your comment section. So if you need to take 30 seconds and write down this work so that you can go back over it. Take 30 seconds, please, and write down the work that I did. Oh, because there's no software? Alright, let's bring it back in. In 3, 2, 1, all eyes, Aaron. Okay, now y. Y is one of those special right triangles. It's a 3, 4, 5. So if this is 0.3, this hypotenuse was 0.5, what did the other leg have to be? 0.4. Because it was a 3, 4, 5 triangle. It had to be 0.4. But it couldn't have been just 0.4. It had to be 0.4 feet. It had to be 0.4 feet. Same with this x root 3. If you did not label your units, you lost a whole point. But you only lost it once.
I labeled the, oh yeah, like put x equals whatever.
Yep.
And 5.
So if you, still kind of wrong. But thank you for labeling. That's super important. I don't know how more I can stress the fact that they are taking off points from no units. Make sure you add your units. So that's how you would go about solving these two right triangles. Questions about these two? Awesome. The next problem was determining if those two triangles, 1 and 2, were similar. Take a second. I'm going to call on one of you. Be ready to answer if they are similar and why. Be ready to answer if they were similar and why. Adrian, were they similar? Yeah. Why?
Because those two angles you could see both of them are the same.
Aaron, did you hear that?
Yeah, I wasn't talking.
Oh, I know, but I was just making sure you heard. What did he say?
Yeah.
Why? Boys. because two angles were congruent. Which similarity theorem is that? Angle, angle. Angle, angle. These two triangles were similar by angle, angle. Well, my next question, don't say it out loud, think it in your head. Are these two triangles congruent? Are they congruent? Yes or no, and why? Yes and no, and why? Someone who says yes, raise your hand up. Aaron,
Yes,
why?
because they have the two little congruency marks right there.
Okay, so there's two angle congruency markings,
So angle.
but is angle, angle a congruency theorem? Lewis, help him out.
Oh, I said wrong because there's no information. It just says that the angle is the same, but it doesn't have anything like the side view.
Exactly. So these triangles are not congruent because how many different comparison of the sides or angles do you need to have a triangle congruency theorem? How many did we work with? How many letters? 3. Unless they were right triangles, which would have been 8 out. Are any of those sides congruent?
No, it's also that.
No. None of those sides are congruent. So can these triangles be congruent? No. So on this test, if you said no, we accepted not enough information, but next time you need to make sure that you say that there's not enough, there weren't any congruent sides. That's what was important about this problem, that none of the sides were congruent. Questions? Awesome. Moving on to these two triangles. Take a second and look and see if those two triangles are congruent. These two right here. Who said no? And want to tell me why?
For which one?
What number is that? Number 4? Is that or
Or is that a
D?
question?
D. It's letter D.
Oh,
Letter D, guys.
Letter D, you in there.
Letter D.
Why?
It's triangle ABC. And
Congruency.
this one right here and DEG. Are these congruent? The answer, the question was yes or no. And you had to make sure you labeled your triangles correctly. If you did not write your letters in the correct order, then you did not get that point. So were these triangles congruent?
Yes.
Josh says yes. Why, Lewis?
I say yes.
Aaron says yes. Lewis, why? On which theorem?
The side angle side.
Side angle side theorem. Exactly. You should have labeled your picture like this. And if you labeled your picture just like that, then you see that side angle side is your congruency theorem, stating that these two triangles are congruent. You did that? So, I'm hearing a lot of I didn't do that. But in the future, will we remember how to do this?
Yes.
Yes. Got it? Okay. Moving on. Oh, first, note, how big is this shark from bend to bend? 6 feet. How big is the keychain? 2 feet. Or was it inches? 2 inches. So what's the scale factor?
By 1/3.
It is by 1/3. We did accept it by 1/3.
We have all the height. Wait, what?
No, 2/3 is the right answer.
Oh, okay.
I'm just talking straight scale factor.
Wait, but I didn't put the third.
It still would have given you the same.
Wait, what did you put?
Um,
1.6.
It would have been the same answer. No, that's fine.
What's it?
Did you have the bar above your .66?
Yeah.
And they didn't give it to you?
I have units though.
Oh, you don't have units.
Higher triangle. Oh, yeah.
You got, okay. So, but guys, as we're going through this, make sure you are checking the work too, because if it was misgraded, then I will send it back in. I can write up a report and get it regraded. So, if the fin on the big picture was originally 2, how do you find the height of this keychain fin? Aaron?
So we had the height for the other one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think we had divided by 3, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You should have gotten 2/3 inches.
I got
You should have gotten 2/3 inches. Because the scale factor was 1/3. So therefore, 1/3 of 2 inches is 2/3 inches. And if you did not add the inches, you lost points. Okay, I'm gonna go back over constructions again, so don't worry about this one. All that you should have remembered, if you couldn't do the construction, you should have at least remembered, I'll wait till everyone's paying attention, it's super important, that from the end center to the opposite side, they're all congruent. So from the end center to the sides, they are congruent. So in this problem, where it says that this right here was 0.14, well then what does this part right here have to be?
0.14.
0.14, and this one right here?
0.14.
0.14, because they were all congruent. So you should have said 0.14. Moving on to the next few problems. What do you guys know? Who can tell me? Raise a hand. How do you find the mid-segment of a triangle? What's the mid-segment of a triangle equal to? Raise a hand. Louis, raise a hand. Half of what? Half of the base it's parallel to. So if this is 15, then x equals 15 over 2, or 7.5. So x was 7.5. X was 7.5. Yes, or 15 over 2. A lot of people put 10. Okay, looking at this one. This also is a special right triangle. It's a 5, 13, 12. But if you didn't know that it was a special right triangle, what could you have used? Aliana, what could you have used? No, sorry. I'll give you time to think about it. If you're trying to find the missing length of a right triangle, what formula could you have used? What formula? It's just a regular right triangle. So which formula did we work with? It starts with a P. Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem. Yes. What is the Pythagorean theorem, Aliana? For B, yes. What's the Pythagorean theorem? Do you remember what it's on my pink poster that fell. That's unfortunate. Louis, tell me.
A squared plus B squared.
Boys, what are y'all talking about? Okay. So it's a squared plus plus b squared equals c squared. Well, what does a equal? A equals 5. What does b equal?
At 13.
No.
At 13.
X. What does c equal?
13.
So your c is your hypotenuse. C will always be the largest number. C will always be the largest number because it's the largest side. It's the hypotenuse. Yes, ma'am.
Will we always do the variable that makes sense?
No, A or B can change because it doesn't matter. The legs doesn't matter. You could have said A was X and then therefore B would have been 5. As long as C was 13, it didn't matter how you solved this problem. Well, what's 5 squared?
24.
And then X squared. What's 13 squared? 169. How do you get X by itself?
Subtract 25.
Subtract 25 from both sides. What's 169 divided by 25 on Nancy? Minus 125, thank you. 144. Mariah, what's my next step in solving for X? You find the square root of 44.
Can I say?
X is equal to
Man, I got a letter.
So, there is 2 ways to do this. One, you knew that 5, 12, 13 was a special right triangle. Or, you used Pythagorean theorem. Questions about these two? Okay, let's look on. What do these two markings tell you guys?
And there.
That they're congruent. So if this is 90 degrees,
45 from 5.
45, 45.
To equal 180.
To equal 180. Yep. All 3 angles had to add up to equal 180. And if you didn't remember that an isosceles 90-degree triangle is a 45, 45, 90, you could have said 2x plus 90 is equal to 180. Subtract 90 from both sides. And x would then have equal 45 degrees. But on this one, we didn't take off if you put the degree sign or not, because this x had the degrees with it. So if you had just said x equals 45, you got that point. And then this last one right here, what do these markings tell you? They're all congruent. How do you find the sum of the interior angles?
N minus 2.
N minus
1
2.
180 times n minus 2. Everyone, if you didn't get this question right, take 30 seconds and solve this problem. At least solve for the sum of the interior angles. So the sum of the interior angles should have been 540, but the question's asking for one angle. So Vanessa, what would you have done? Divide by the number of sides. This is where a lot of people lost points.
I know.
Because a lot of people said that the answer was 180, but the answer was 108. Because 5 goes into 500 one time, and then 5 goes into 40 8 times. So it should have been 108 degrees.
Oh yeah.
108.
I know the
A lot of people wrote 180. A lot of people. Well, this was a non-calculator section, so I think that's why.
No, but you
Is it 180 like the straight line?
Yes.
No, but like maybe each time 180 is like 5.
Yes. But people did not check it. Exactly. This is why, guys, when you have extra time, you need to go back over your work. And then the answer was false, true, true. False, true, true.
I put true.
Oh, man.
Moving right along because I want to. Hey guys,
Yes.
take a second. Stop talking. Talk about these after. Let's go through these a little bit more quickly, please. I promised you guys that the perpendicular bisector equation was going to be on your test. It was worth a total of 7 points. This whole free response question, or 8 points. 8 points. No, just this problem. The one with the perpendicular bisector, which I promised you guys was going to be on your test, appeared
8 points
in
in
your
total?
8 points out of 30. This whole part. So that's why I showed you guys a perpendicular bisector problem like 5 times. Because I really wanted you guys to get this. So, the first problem. You should have found the length of AB. Which formula, raise a hand, shows you the length of AB? Raise your hand. Josh, the distance formula. The distance formula shows you the length. Or you could have used Pythagorean theorem. You could have counted how the A and the B, and you would have got the same answer. So either one, you could have used Pythagorean theorem or the distance formula. Yes, Mark.
Is it wrong to put 13 and square root 2 is, and you put 2 and square root?
What did you bring?
Or like 13 square root 2.
Yeah, that was wrong. Which, it was a very common mistake. But you got a point for having square root of 52. You did get that point. Did you get that point?
There's no
Oh, look, it's a color.
You don't think you got it? We'll all look at it, okay? So, you should have gotten the square root of 52. We gave you a point for that. But if you simplified it correctly, you would have gotten 2 points. Everybody, let's practice our simplification of radicals. If you get the square root of 52, how do you simplify this further? Who can raise a hand and tell me the first step in simplifying radicals? Marcos, you did it. You didn't do it quite correctly, but you did it. What did you do?
I find what you multiply to equal to.
You need to find the 2 factors. Exactly. Which 2 factors did you find?
I found 13 and 4.
13 and 4. What you should do is write the perfect square first. Which number is a perfect square? 4. So that's the first step. The second step was to take the square root of both factors. What is the square root of 4? 2. What's the square root of 13? It's the square root of 13 because it is not a perfect square. It cannot be factored further. So therefore, your answer was 2 root 13. The second problem, B, was the perpendicular bisector. What does the word bisect mean? Cut in half. So what point cuts a segment in half, Aaron? What point cuts a segment in half? No, B. It starts with M.
Midpoint.
The midpoint. So your first step was to find midpoint, which was -1, 1. If you found the correct midpoint, you got a point. The next thing, you had to find the perpendicular slope of AB. You had to first find the slope of AB. Who found the correct slope of AB? That's the perpendicular slope. Marcos, what was the slope of AB?
AB.
AB. You should have gotten AB was 3 over 2. So what's the opposite reciprocal of 3 over 2? Negative 2/3. Exactly. So once you have plotted your midpoint, you would have gone down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3, or up 2 over 3. And then drawn your equation, or drawn the line. The next part was to find the line equation. What is a line equation? Y equals mx plus b. And we're trying to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector. So what should m have been? Negative 2/3. What's your x? Negative 1. What was your y? Positive 1. Because your midpoint was negative 1, 1. Plus b. How do you get b by itself? Negative 2/3 times 1 is negative 2/3. Or sorry, you get positive because it's negative 1. How do you get b by itself now? So I see where you get the opposite reciprocal, but the 2/3 and the b are separated by a plus sign. When it's separated by a plus sign, how do you get b by itself? You subtract. You subtract 1 or 2/3 from both sides, so b should have equaled 1/3. So then your equation is y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1/3. You multiply if it had been 1/3 b or 2/3 b, but because it's 2/3 plus b, then because of that plus sign, you have to subtract. Marcus?
How come it says like y minus 1 equals a?
That is, which form is that y minus 1 form? That's called the point slope form. So you could have used the point slope form too. On your formula chart, you were given all 3 of those equations to use. You could have chosen one of them. We just work with y equals mx plus b, so that's the one that I show you guys. And then, what kind of triangle did AC and CB form? Isosceles. Why? Simply saying that the 2 sides were congruent wasn't enough. You had to show, either using the distance formula of AC and CB, that they both equaled root 26, or you could have stated that a point, so point C, that lies on the perpendicular bisector of a segment is equidistant to the endpoints. That was one of those theorems that we talked about in Unit 7. Actually, Unit 6. So before Christmas, it was a long time ago.
Like last year.
And then the last part, the proof. Who wrote down the first statement and the first reason?
Oh,
I want to see everyone's hand. Okay. That's awesome. You got a point there. A lot of people left it blank, and that blew my mind. You will always get a point for writing down the first one. Did anybody get the whole proof correct? Did anybody get to the conclusion of angle side angle? You got a point. You got 2 points.
Yes.
Well,
The rest I just don't.
I got like.
Okay, so how we graded this, guys, is that you got 1 point for having the first statement and the first reason. Then you got another point for having the right conclusion. And then you got a 3rd point if everything was correct. If everything else was correct. worksheet that we picked up for today. Hold on to it. It's yours. You can have it. Take a minute. Silently work on these problems. Aliana, you have this worksheet? Yeah. Silently work on these problems. We might not have remembered 45, 45, 90. What's special about this hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90?
Six. I mean,
X times
square root
root. So knowing that formula, you can use that for 1 through 3, and then the 30, 60, 90 formula for 4 through 6, which is still done. Where's number 1 then? 1 through 3? Are we, who needs 1 more minute? Alright, I'm going to call on random people. Marcos, what did you get for number 1?
X equals 4.
Mariah, did you get x equals 4 for number 1? Yes? Yes? Like yes question mark or yes?
Yes.
Yes. Did somebody get something other than 4? So we're good on number 1?
I need the whole thing.
You need help?
Yeah.
Nope, no worries. Okay, so the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 is equal to x root 2. In this problem, our hypotenuse is 4 root 2. Well, because we know that it's a 45, 45, 90, then 4 root 2 is equal to x root 2. How do you get x by itself? Josh, how would I get x by itself?
Divide by.
Divide. Divide by root 2, divide by root 2. So what should x equal? 4. So whenever you have a 45, 45, 90, you set your hypotenuse equal to x root 2 and then solve for x. Ivan, what did you get for number 2? 3 root 2. Jeanette, what did you get? Aliana? Do you understand, what's the side length? What's that equal to? What's the side length equal to? 3. So we go over here, it's a 45, 45, so this is 3, and then you do 3 is equal to x, so the answer would be 3 root 2. Nancy, what did you get for number 3? 5 root 2, I got that too. Adrian, what did you get for number 3?
3. X equals 5 root 2.
5 square root 2. Okay, perfect. Number 4. Aaron, what did you get for number 4 for x?
ain't quite get there.
Okay, no worries. Do you guys think we need to work out number 4 really
Yeah.
quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4. Which side is opposite the 30-degree angle? 1, right? So looking over here, x is equal to 1. Well, then what does our side opposite the 60-degree angle equal? X root 3. So if x root 3 is our 60-degree side, and x is equal to 1, in this picture, what does x equal to then? 1 times root 3. Because the side opposite the 60, right here, is equal to x times root 3. Well, if x is equal to 1, you just plug 1 into all of these x values. So then what does this y equal?
2.
This y equals 2x, and because x is equal to 1, 2 times 1, so y is equal to 2. So y was 2, and x should have been root 3. I know we're running out of time, but try this second one really quickly. What's the side opposite the 60-degree angle equal to? 4 root 3. What does the side opposite the 60-degree angle equal? X root 3. So how do I get x by itself? By root 3.
4 equals x.
4 equals x, and then y then will equal 8, because it's 2x. So 2 times 4 is 8.
Actually, by the I should just say that.
Married.
Louis, will you give her projector, please?
No, just move it. Thank you.
Hey Josh.